you bitches kill me. And if you don't get it together and drop these macho attitudes, you are never gonna have anybody bringing you anything, anywhere, any place, anytime, ever.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
All of you jealous, ugly bitches can kiss my fabulous, very perky black ass. And yes, William, today, you're one of those bitches.
Hey everyone, what's good? And welcome back to the Barely Adulting Podcast for another episode where we discuss news, relationships, pop culture, life issues, and so much more. I'm your host, T. Marie. Happy New Year, everybody. What's good? Like, are y'all okay? We're doing a little check-in real quick because I'm feeling good. I'm feeling refreshed, rejuvenated. I am glad that we left 2020 in the past because you know how much that came with. All right. We thought it was going to be a little bit better, but kind of went a whole left back in like January of last year. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, right? But anyway, let us go ahead and get into some morning coffee and on with the rest of our show because I have some great stuff to tell you. So I'm gonna need you to stay tuned. All right?
Anybody want coffee? I'm making coffee. Anybody want coffee?
All right, first things first, I'll just say this. It may just be a little bit of a lengthy episode this week, so y'all gotta bear with me because when I have my guests on, we like to talk, okay? And we like to talk about a lot of good stuff. And sometimes the conversation just lingers on a little bit longer than, what's planned. Prior to, I'll tell them like, okay, let's go ahead and do like a 45 to 60 minute, session. Woo out the bam. Maybe something shorter, maybe even 30 minutes just to get y'all morning coffee and everything else. However, that doesn't always work out. So y'all got to bear with me, all right? We still trying to get this thing together. It's still early on. So we're going to have it planned out sooner than later. All right. Hopefully next episode, we're going to have a little bit of shorter episode. But, I can't promise you anything. So bear with me, like I said before. Okay. And we're just going to see how this goes. But if you're a rider, you're going to be with me regardless. So, hey, I ain't even worried. Anyway, let us go ahead and get to our morning coffee, all right? So, first things first. Why is y'all's president still trying to not claim his loss? He's still not trying to step down as president as of right now. I don't get it. I don't get it. He lost fair and square, but now they're trying to figure out if Joe Biden's going to be certified as the next president or whatever because he's still fighting it. And the crazy thing is, all that comes into play because as of right now, this is the kicker, right? 11 Republicans objected to certifying Biden. Now, let me tell you what that means real quick. That's basically going against saying, oh, well, we don't think he deserves to be president. We're going to put this on hold, yada, 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 right? The biggest thing about this, they know they're going to lose. They're going to lose this fight, but they're doing it anyway. Everybody knows they're going to lose this fight because he won fair and square. But this is all for their own political gain at the end of the day. So, it was Josh Hawley? Yeah, Josh Hawley, right? He basically said that he will challenge Biden's clear electoral college win over President Donald Trump next week during what has traditionally been a ceremonial exercise on Capitol Hill. Like, y'all don't know how historic that is because every president that I know of, like I can't speak to, all the rest of them that probably have some issues going into the White House or whatever. But people in that position of power has stepped down gracefully and turned over the reins. That's not happening right now. Why do we have Republicans coming up saying, oh, well, I'm going to challenge that and say, you're not going to be president. What's the purpose? Almost a dozen Republicans is going against it. Come on now. You're not going to win this. You're not. Because it was a clear winner in this. You know how many times Trump tried to say, no, that didn't happen. It didn't work. And all of a sudden he got all these lawsuits that he lost money, like big money with. And we're still in the same situation. you know what? There's literally no point in seceding at this point. Like, this is like literally for all these Republicans' political gain. Y'all, get Ted Cruz up out of here. Just get him and his followers, his flock of sheep on out of here. I could care less who thinks anything of it, but at some point y'all gotta really realize that who is actually winning at the end of the day when it comes to this. Because this right here is a whole mess. It's messy. Y'all real messy for this. But anyway, let's move on, right? So I do want to make some type of awareness to the Native American people while I'm on this platform. I'm not sure if you all know, but the Navajo Nation, which is the largest Native American tribe with over 300,000 members across the U.S., and when I say U.S., I'm talking about southwestern region of the U.S., right, has reported to have 21,000 confirmed cases and 748 deaths to COVID during this pandemic. That is a huge impact, especially for a people who were the original people here in this country that for whatever reason we tend to forget about. So I want to bring them back to light. And the biggest issue that they're facing, or one of the biggest issues, I'm not going to say the biggest issues, one of the biggest issues they are facing right now is losing their elders, losing their leaders, losing their knowledge keepers. And it's crazy because if they die off, their history dies with them if it's not preserved. So it's been a really big thing as of right now, especially with COVID, affecting all communities, of course, but it is doing a major impact on the Navajo people and Native Americans alike. They are actually more susceptible to coronavirus because they suffer from disproportionate rates of asthma, heart disease, hypertension, and diabetes, which is crazy. And you know, asthma and COVID does not get along. It does not mix at all. So with that being said, even then we have this group of people, 10% of them do not have electricity. 40% do not have running water. That's 40%. You know how close to half that is? So if we're sitting there telling people, go wash your hands for 20 seconds, these people don't even have running water. A lot of them don't. It's literally crazy how impactful this year, the year of 2020 has been. And we don't know how much of an impact it's going to make into this year. This being like the second, third day in at this point. It's crazy. I would just say that we need to do a better job at taking away that invisibility cloak that we have over them, because they are still here, they are still present, and we need to treat them as such. Them needs to become an us. They are the American people. We need to make sure that they're doing okay too. All right, let's move on. So like everybody knows, the little stimmy package just dropped. And a lot of people are getting their little checks or whatever for $600. But at first it was $2,000. And well, they were trying to get it passed for $2,000, but it went down to $600 because, you know, America's a third world country and whatnot. And, you know, all they doing is painting Gucci on some Uchis. I don't know. Like, America is just like pitiful. Let's be real. Let's call a spade a spade. We pitiful. All these other countries getting stimulus checks back to back each month. I'm still waiting on my first one, but that's a different story. Whatever. So, in response to the stimulus check not being approved for $2,000 and them actually giving us $600 instead after months of waiting for a new stimulus check to come through, because like I said, other countries have been getting it month to month. This is our second one, and this is January. The last one came in back in March of last year. So I'm not sure how other people were supposed to survive, the ones who actually lost their jobs and trying to fend for themselves and things of that nature. Like, they don't care apparently. So in response to that, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's houses were completely, I wouldn't say completely destroyed, but you get the picture. People went in there and said, look, we gonna spray some graffiti on it. We gonna kind of mess up what you got going on since you not gonna give me a check. Honestly, I don't think it should have worked like that, but at the same time, I'm like, dang, y'all really just went for the heavy hitters, because actually Mitch McConnell, he was the one who was blocking that whole $2,000, check to come through. And I'm gonna just say I understand. I'm not gonna say it's right, but I understand. I'll just say that, because he literally killed the $2,000 increase on the stimulus check. Okay, cool. He stated that the amount is simply not right, or not the right approach. Well, what other approach is there, Mitch? Y'all haven't given us any money since March. Shoot, the American people since March. I'm part of that, and I still ain't get that first one, like I said. And I doubt I get the second one, because anytime I call up there, they're talking about, oh, well, we still have so many people to go, and, we're still waiting. Okay, whatever. I'm putting my business on Front Street, but whatever. I don't care at this point. His net worth is $35 million. So I don't think that he really cares. Let's just be real. He doesn't really care about everybody else, the po folks, like we like to say, because he's so far removed. He's 78 years old. Is it 78 or 87? I think it's 78. 78 years old with a net worth of 35 million. White man. Yeah. I guess there you have it. Whatever. Now, last but not least, because I know I said a handful already, The Office is now off of Netflix. When I tell you I was hurt at 2:22 a.m. on January 1st, watching the last show that I could, and when I went to the next one, it said, sorry, the show is no longer available. I'm hurt. However, there is still another way to watch The Office if you do not have it on DVD already, or downloaded, or however else, like streaming. NBC, it actually has this streaming site now called Peacock, where it took The Office back, because The Office was originally on NBC's network. So they're back on NBC's network, and now a lot of the deleted scenes and never before seen footage is actually on that streaming site service now. I actually watched never before seen clip on the internet. It was so good. I loved it. And I might just have to go ahead and go to Peacock, unless I have a friend or somebody who's already beat me to it. They like to share the password. Who knows? I ain't saying that, but it is what it is. But this is your morning coffee for this week. Hopefully it was not too much for you, but let's go ahead and get into the grown folks table. Hopefully won't be there too long, but hey, it is what it is, right? So let's get into it. I have another special guest this week, and go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kira. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Go ahead and introduce it. Come on, give me some more. All you said was Kira. What do you do? Who are you? Who is Kira?
Well, my name is Kira. I currently reside in Arizona. I'm originally from Chicagoland area. Right now, I'm a 7th and 8th grade teacher. I teach ELA. One thing I'm involved in right now, you guys can check me out on Instagram, is KD Custom. I currently make decorative candles. My candles look like real items, such as like food, drinks, and things like that. I'm excited to be on the show. We can talk about some black media representation. One thing I'm really passionate about. I have been involved with the Black community and being active as far as getting out there and try to making my voice heard and helping out with the community. As far as, like I said, I'm a teacher and I work a lot with minorities, so I'm excited to be here. Is that good?
Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. Honestly, I don't know why you sitting there acting shy. I'm like, you are not a shy person.
I don't even know what to. I don't even know what to say on introductions. You know when you go around the class and you introduce yourself. I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck do I say? Give me a give me a rundown. What the hell you want me to say?
Talking about give me this, and I got you. Don't trip.
You be thinking like introducing yourself be easy. That'd be like the hardest part.
It does though, because I be tripping up too sometimes. I'm like, okay, who are you? Oh, dang, I really don't know who I am.
What I do.
Yes. Well, I don't think we mentioned it before, but Kira's actually my line sister. We are a part of the same organization. So, we lit over here. You feel me?
You know how it goes, right?
All of that. But you had definitely mentioned something about being involved in the community, and it actually touches on the topic that we are going to have today. So could you speak a little bit to that? Have you done any marches, or like what have you done to enhance the community in that sense?
Well, during my college days, I was involved in NAACP. I was actually on the ZAC board there. I participated in several marches. In fact, I participated around Ferguson shootings. I was actually in DC, and I participated in a few marches out there. Same thing in Chicago. The recent march, I was not able to participate because I had knee surgery, so I was kind of on bed rest during the time, but I still made my contribution. So I donated what I could at the time. So I donated my money, what I could, and I was actively, I'm currently right now getting involved with the NAACP chapter in Maricopa County in Arizona. So I'm getting involved with that one. I'm trying to get my reactivation. I just submitted my application and everything. So I'm making my way back into the activism world now that I'm back up and healthy and can move around again.
See, this is a person who's about her business. Like, she putting her money where her mouth is. If I can't go, I'm gonna send some money. Mm-hmm. What y'all doing? I'm not gonna start that conversation. Never mind. Let's just stay away from that.
Always, though, you got to put your money where your mouth is. Posting on social media ain't gonna get you so far.
Exactly. But I know it does some good because some people only look at social media and that's the only news that they get. So that's cool. But what you doing after that is the question. Yep. Right? How
are you helping the community? Even if I'm not like out there protesting, I'm effectively in the classroom every day, and I do the best I can for my students, especially my minority students.
Changing lives one day at a time.
Yeah, and education. If you know anything about education, it ain't an easy world.
Right. And I'm in education too. But especially being in the classroom, I feel like that's very vital. And when I say that, it's because most of our students spend majority of their days and their time of their life in the classroom. So if you actually have at least one person to challenge them in that sense, to actually open up their eyes to see a different way or give them a different perspective, it's so beneficial. It goes a long way, even if it's something small.
It really does. Honestly, I'm in a classroom with a student about 6 hours out the day. So most of the time I'm spending more time with them than they do with their parents. So it's largely an impact. And when you're in a class, you wear so many different hats. You're not just a teacher. I'm a teacher. I'm a social worker. I'm a crisis manager. I'm a parent. All the above. I'm so many things. I wear so many hats in that classroom. So it's a tiring job, but it is rewarding at the end of the day because even if I can't affect the entire classroom, helping one or two students is definitely a special reward in itself. So
it sounds like y'all need to get paid more wearing all those hats.
Oh yes, we do. If I release my salary, you guys would think it's a joke. The fact that's one of the things I think a lot of teachers, especially during this pandemic, is like we have so much to do and they don't want to compensate us for any of the stuff that we do. Mm-hmm. Speaking of somebody who has 2 degrees and, I use somebody who has to work 2 jobs just to try to make ends meet and to be an educator, especially in the state of Arizona, it's ridiculous. Sure. It's ridiculous.
And it was
appreciate a job in the world.
Right. And it was ridiculous in Illinois, so I can only imagine in Arizona.
Yeah. It's just nationwide, underappreciated. But we do it because
overqualified.
We do it because we love him, and it's a rewarding job. At the end of the day, that making an impact on a kid's life is because the way I look at it is when you're in the classroom, you can't nothing in the world would exist without a teacher.
Right, because you definitely have to have a passion for it at the end of the day.
It's a stressful job. It ain't easy.
So let's get into our before we get into our first question for the topic. Honestly, I want to just go ahead and check in with you to see how you're doing. I usually do that with all my guests at this point, just to see, if you're okay, if you're not. We just want to make sure it's raw and Just make sure that you're heard at the end of the day.
Well, I would say I'm doing better than maybe a month or two ago. So it's just progression every day.
Were you down a month or two ago?
Huh?
Were you down a month or two ago?
Well, yes. Recently we lost. We had some tragic events that happened in our family, so it's been trying to recover from those, and trying to come in peace with everything that happened within the past year. But I would say I'm doing better than I was a few months ago.
Well, that's always good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking any necessary steps to just keep going, or it's just like one day at a time?
One day at a time. And what I love doing is like I said, I do candles, so I dive it's therapy to me. I kind of dive into my crafts. I love I love doing what I do, and I love making different items and coming up with different creative things to do. So that's like honestly therapy to me. So that's like my candles is more than just my business. It's a passion of mine. It's something I really love to do. So when I get orders and stuff that come in, or people challenge me and have me do a different item, it's like an exciting thing. I get really excited about doing that. So just kind of focusing on that has been, like I said, it has been therapy for me. So I suggest everybody do that. Find something that you really like to do, because that's kind of like take your mind off of things, and you find something that's just therapy. If you like working out, maybe listen to music, writing, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of finding your niche and what you like to do.
That's dope. And I feel like a lot of us on our line, at least, we all do some type of artsy stuff, except for a few, but it's fine.
Yeah, we do have a pretty creative line.
Yeah,
everybody's creative in their own way, even if it ain't just drawn to something. They're creative in their own way.
Right. And that's the thing about it. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the topic, right?
Yep.
So first question to lead this whole conversation is, do you believe that there is enough representation for Black people in the media? Why or why not? Now, I know there is, it's going to be discussion about minorities and Black and brown people, but I really want to just focus in on the Black people at this point. Like, this is what the topic is going to be.
To be honest with that question, no, I don't think it's a fair representation of pretty much anybody, but especially Black people. I think you get your token. They always get their token one, and they can run off with that one. Like, just think about the movies in Hollywood. Hollywood is filled with so many Black actors. There's so many Black actors with talent who don't really get the representation. They get there maybe, I would say, decrease over the past years, because back in the 90s, it was only two. It was Denzel and Halle Berry. But now you got like maybe 5 token Black actors you see in the blockbuster films, but that's it. You only see those 5 Black actors. You don't see them expand. And it's so many things that have talent. Like, that's why, even though people talk about Tyler Perry, but I do appreciate Tyler Perry in those ways, because Tyler Perry has opened the door for so many Black actors. You can think about people like Viola Davis. She got her stars in films like Tyler Perry films. So he does give Black people that platform. But when you go into the Hollywood and, you talk about the blockbuster films, there's not that many Black representations. Even you watch TV, you have very selectful shows. There's not that many. And the ones that you do get that are like really successful, they only have a couple seasons, then it canceled. Think about shows like Underground. Underground was a phenomenal show, but it showed too much, and they pulled the show off the air. So
now, what do you mean by too much? Because some people may not even get that when you say that. It might just run off like, oh, I'm kind of figuring out what too much is. What is that?
What I mean by too much is it, put it like this, it would make white people uncomfortable. So stuff that would make them uncomfortable, I feel like they don't want to portray that, or they don't want to show things in the negative light. Like when you watch shows like, for example, the recent, I don't know if anybody watched Lovecraft Country. I don't want to give a spoiler alert, but I'm gonna kind of give a spoiler alert.
I love Lovecraft Country. Yes.
The recent episode they had, I think it was the second to last episode they showed the Tulsa riot.
Oh yeah. Woo.
That stirred a lot of people the wrong way, because they dove into it, and they didn't, they were unapologetic with it. They didn't hide, and they didn't sugarcoat anything that happened during those riots. They showed exactly, and they displayed that. Same thing with the show Watchmen. It opened up with the Tulsa riots. And shows like, I feel like when they show too much. Like I said, they talk about the history, and they don't sugarcoat things. They don't make it seem like, or they show a part of history that we want to ignore. They don't want those type of shows on air. And I feel like when you have shows like that, they pull those off the air. They don't want people to see those. And that's another thing. Even like when we do have shows like that, those are only shows that they kind of do put on TV. So when we do have like they only want to put like slave movies and things like that, so they don't really show like the other side of Black history either.
Well, let's jump into that too, because I want to go backpedal to a couple points that you made, because you kind of went into the topics where I was going. So I'm like, okay, cool, let's go. So first, I want to just backtrack to Lovecraft Country. And then I'm gonna keep going back based off the points that you made, right? Lovecraft Country is actually based off a book. You know the history about Lovecraft Country and all that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for the people listening, Lovecraft Country is actually based off of a book that a white man wrote, and it was very racist. Let's just say that it was very. It did not depict Black people in a positive light by any means necessary, right? So what ended up happening when they actually brought this movie, or not really a movie, the series to light, they put a spin on it to actually show Black people in a better light, to make them look real and, actually, realistic in a sense where you can actually see yourself in this person, where it was like no hero at all. Because, anytime you see a movie or a show, you always can point out the hero, you can point out the antagonist. I'm not sure about you, but there was no clear hero or antagonist in this series for me, because it was everyone had their flaws. Everybody had their ups and their downs and things of that nature, where I can relate on just a human level with the characters. So when Lovecraft Country, you were talking about the Tulsa massacre, right? I love that scene in general. I love the whole series. Let's be real. Like everything that came out of it, like I loved it. But that particular episode in general, it showed you no Black people that was whimpering in the corner somewhere scared, but it actually showed you that they fought back. And you don't get to see that a lot, especially when it comes to massacres or just representation for Black people in general. They actually show Black people fighting back and not just taking it. Because a lot of times we actually get the representation where it's just like, oh, I'm going to just sit back and just let them do whatever they want to me.
Turn the other cheek.
Like Jesus. But guess what? John's Jesus don't say that at all. But people don't read that part. Regardless, it's always a turn the other cheek type of moment. Like we have to be better than that. When somebody just keeps hitting you, oh, you're just supposed to take it. No, if you're being disrespected, you're going to act on that. But people don't tend to think that Black people can't have a reaction to an action that was done to them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that point, because they don't like to see things when you're fighting back. Because I remember when they released the movie, what was in the movie that the Nat Turner film that they recently did? What's his name? Nate Parker? Didn't he do? I think that's his name. The actor who played Birth of a Nation. Did the Nat Turner thing. Now, when that movie came out, he kind of got blackballed in Hollywood. They started bringing up old stuff that happened, and when he was in college, an accusation that he's been in Hollywood for 15 plus years. You never heard about this before, but when this movie came out, they instantly threw this out, and that brought the blockbuster ratings down tremendously. People weren't focusing on the message that he was trying to display in the movie. They were focused on what he did, and it pretty much blocked what the whole standpoint of what that movie was supposed to be about. And people just focused in on the actor that was playing in that movie, that he was accused of this rape charge, but I do believe which was dismissed. So it was an accusation. There was no prosecution that followed up with that accusation that happened.
Right.
But it's almost like especially when Black men get accused of certain things, it's automatic guilt. Now I'm not saying all are innocent, because we know a lot aren't, but there are a lot of times when they automatically are accused of certain things. It's an accusation, so it's automatically you did this. And I
guess we got to put that disclaimer out there too. Like, not every time that we come out and say, oh, let's just say Black Lives Matter or whatever, or an accusation comes up, we're not always fighting and saying that person is innocent, right? It's oh, well, they didn't do it. We actually look into it and say, okay, did you do it or did you not? It's never like you are instantly innocent. So I just want to throw that out there, but go ahead. Yeah,
so when they did that, it was like the whole message of the movie was lost. And a lot of times when they don't want to show films with Black people fighting back. They only want to show us like you said, turn the other cheek. They don't want to show that that there was a movement. There was actually people. Everybody didn't just follow line and didn't just go along with the everything that happened. That it was people that were fighting back. Like, how many films do you see about the Black Panthers? I know they're coming out with a Fred Hampton film, but out of all the slave films that you've seen, how many have you seen about the ones that actually did fight back? How many films have you seen about the ones that, you know, I can't think of that. I don't know if they do have one. If they do have one, I would love to see it. But the revulsion that they had in Haiti, I've never seen a film on that. Why is there not a film on that? We see things like 12 Years a Slave, but why don't we see about the ones that fighting back? And even not even just the ones that fighting back, but why don't we see the positive side of Black history? It's so much positive
because we don't have a past. We're not a passive people, and I don't understand why it's always being taken as that. You know, where if we were a passive people or a passive group, right, we would not be here to this day. We all learned in science class it was survival of the fittest. We would not be here if that was the case.
So yeah, I just think that when it comes to film, they always want to show the negative side of Black history. They don't want to show, you know, the ones that we're fighting back or the positive. Because when you think about Black history, especially when it comes down to American history, you will think that we just started on the slave ship.
Yeah.
I don't know no history about us coming up before that. Everything you see on TV and all the movies that you see is us. We came on a slave ship, and that's what
it's been westernized. It's been the European culture has taken over, where every other person's culture does not really matter, and that's how it's been portrayed in the media for so long. Where it's gotten to the history books and it's gotten to the news ways and everything else. So anytime you look around and you see a white face, it's just like, okay, that must be right. Because, you know, growing up, I did not see too many Black faces in my history book alone or my math book or whatever other book it was. The only time we talked about Black history was in February for Black History Month. And it'll be the same. I'm not saying that they're overly talked about, but at the same time, these new generations need to know about these people, right? But you'll get the Malcolm X's, you'll get the, not necessarily, well, you get Martin Luther King, not really Malcolm X, unless you know someone to know somebody, right? Because they don't like to talk about Malcolm as much. Who else? Rosa Parks. You know, you'll always get those people.
The same ones.
But that's, if you keep getting taught that it's only those three that's doing something, you don't realize how many other people has contributed to our culture and America in general. So I don't know. But as far as, let's go backtrack a little bit more, because you talked about Tyler Perry. Let's go there before we go to the American and Brit conversation I want to get into too. Tyler Perry. Yes, I do believe that he is a very big asset to the culture in general, because he came from nothing, one. He made something about us for us too. And he's also in a space where he's giving other Black people positions of power, people jobs and things of that nature. And before I get into the plays and things of that nature, right, and how it's portrayed, did you hear anything about him only writing his own stuff and he wasn't letting anybody else into the writer's room?
I didn't, but I can believe it, because I think everybody always talks about how his writing is repetitive.
Yeah,
the same story over and over and over again. So it's Tyler Perry.
Right. And I was hearing a lot about that until he just now, I think, started letting people into the writer's room and other writers, other Black writers and things of that nature. So I want to get into the Black writing. I really don't see too many Black writers. And then you can recognize what's being written by Black people when you look at TV shows and what's not. Right? Has it come a time where you were sitting there watching or reading something where you're just like, they're portraying Black people as this, but good down inside of you in your soul, you like, this ain't it at all. Like, I know this is not written by a Black person.
Yes, see, but you know what? I don't know, because it was written, I do believe it is written by Black people, but I just have a problem with the writing. I guess the show Empire, I always felt Empire, the way they portray things was just, I don't know. And I guess it was Black writing, but it was just negative Black writing. But like shows, I don't know if I recently watched a show where they put a Black person on there and they the representation was off. Let me see. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I can't think on top of my head any shows, but I'm pretty sure I've seen movies and things like that where the writing was written by a white person and the representation was off. I know a lot of times, and then I will say that because I remember watching an interview with his name is Lee Daniels, the guy who does Empire and The Butler.
Yeah.
Remember he did an interview and he was saying how he watches films and how a lot of times when he's watching it's written by a white person and the representation and the dialogue that they have with the black people all off. And a lot of times I do see films and like they over exaggerate, like, you know, you got to have they have the stereotypes. Like they put the black woman in there and she's loud. She's
right.
Over the top. She's always angry, you know, just plays a stereotype. And that's not the representation of a black person. Or they have the token black guy in there who he's timid or you have the aggressive one in there. So a lot of times when I do see them, and it is written by a white person, that the dialogue and what they say is pretty off. And now I will say stuff that I know it's kind of off topic, but one show that I love watching, and I think the dialogue is amazing because when I watch it, I feel like it's conversations that I will have with my friends and the conversation I will have with you guys and stuff like that. It's Insecure. Insecure, I think does an amazing job. They're like,
I love Insecure.
It's the way the writing is, the dialogue between the way they talk with each other. I'm like, it's so spot on. You can definitely tell it's written by, you know, black women because it's how black women would talk to each other and how we would portray ourselves and how we would act and how even just like I know I was recently in a group we were talking about this on the Clubhouse. I recently joined that and we're talking about it was Insecure and we were talking about Insecure and we were talking about the scene where they were. I don't know how can I talk about the scene? Sorry, it's a side note. It was a scene where they were talking about giving blowjobs. I would say. So,
you can say it. Go ahead. You can say it. We were all here. Go ahead. Say whatever.
Okay. Well, they were talking about giving head to men, and the conversation they were having with each other was. I was laughing at that conversation because I'm like, it was 100% accurate. Because men were asking, like, was that conversation accurate? Women had that conversation with each other. And I'm like, that conversation is probably the most accurate conversation I've ever seen on TV. When it came down to women, I thought that dialogue was wonderful. So I would say shows like that when it is written about black people and by black people, the writing is a lot better, especially when it comes down to the dialogue, because they use the type of slang that I would use. They use the type of tone I would use in that type of conversation. So I could definitely tell when it is written by a black person and it is written for a black person. And
using the slang in the right way. You feel me? Because sometimes you'll know. But shout out to Issa Rae, man.
Yes.
Shout out to her because she is doing her thing out here. Okay. I'm just in awe because I'm still waiting on the next season to drop because I don't want it to end ever. Like, I don't want it to ever end. Like, when I get 40, I still want it to be going on.
Me too.
I want it to grow with me.
And I'm mad Lawrence having a baby. I didn't like that.
Look, you know,
time they got back together.
I don't even want to get into that because but it makes it realistic. You know, that's the beauty of it. It makes it very realistic. Even though I knew her coming back around, all of a sudden calling it all day and he ain't answer the phone, I knew it was something.
Something's coming up.
Like I said, I'm not going to get into it because I'm going to get hurt all over again. I'm going to be sitting here getting upset. Regardless, right? Yeah. She made the show very realistic to her viewers. She knew her audience, so she wrote towards her audience, and everybody else fell in line at the end of the day. So I don't know about you, but like I said, I'm waiting for the next season and the next 7 after that. I just want them to be locked and loaded in a job, but it's okay. Like I don't want to limit them and all of a sudden it's their whole life. But you know, at the end of the day,
it should be their whole life. It's a great show. Like shouldn't to do nothing else, and I'll be satisfied with that.
I'll be okay. Like it needs to go on like Dallas. You know,
make another show, put another show out there like that. So
actually that's gonna get me into my next question then. Because man, if it was like Dallas, you know, Dallas been going on for years and they just did spinoffs and it's still going. I want it to be like that. But anyway, or any of those soap operas, to be honest. Sitcoms. So at some point in time, like let's say the 90s, right? We had so many sitcoms to choose from. Black sitcoms at that. So we had The Cosby Show, we had Malcolm and Eddie, The Parkers, 227, Moesha, Martin, Living Single, Smart Guy, The Jamie Foxx Show. You know, it can keep going on and on, right? Whereas now, a different world. Let's just throw that the Fresh Prince too. Now we have it to where I'm searching for shows to watch. I just don't understand that, because nowadays, instead of having these sitcoms where it's family based or multifaceted, just like Black people are, we're multifaceted. We have different sides of each other. Like everybody, you can't just put us in a group because we come from different walks of life, right? And these shows represented that too, where you get those different walks of life: single dad, single mom, 2-parent household, neighbors, friends, whatever, right? But nowadays, all I see is Love and Hip Hop or Real Housewives of whatever. And that's all you get. So how do you feel about that versus, you know, back in the 90s where we actually had a lot more representation than we do now?
I'm sorry. Hold on. He just walked in the room. Hold on. I'm about to let me mute myself really quick.
So go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
All right. Well, when it comes down to sitcoms, well, I think the sitcom days are like, there aren't like that many sitcoms. I mean, it is a couple. Like, shout out to Blackish and Grownish. I love both of those shows. And I love the representation of those shows, because they have like shows like Blackish, and you know, they have portrayals of a positive Black family. There's a mom who's a doctor, dad is I think he's a marketing entertainer. He does something with advertisement. But I like shows like that. But yes, I do agree that I miss shows like, I remember even early 2000s, you had shows like College Hill, where even though it showed drama, but it was in college, so it was like it still portrayed, you know, they showed the drama that happened, but it was kind of fun too. So it made you excited to, you know, want to go to college one day and actually get on that show. So I do miss shows like that, and I will say I am guilty, because I was a Love and Hip Hop fan. That was one of my guilty pleasures, but I recently stopped watching. Because I used to mainly only watch Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, but I recently started watching maybe like 2 years ago. And the main reason I stopped watching, because it just seemed like they just started putting more and more negativity on the show. It just like it just got less and less classy. Well, I mean, it was never classy, but I don't want to say trashy, but that's honestly what it is. It's just, they started putting just negative people on the show. They had the most ghetto and ratchet and negative stereotypical person that they can find.
It was
like,
messy.
It is. It's like, you know, if you could portray the most negative stereotype of a Black person, please come on our show.
No, but for real, because I'm still waiting on a lot of them to make music, or some of them already stopped making music a long time ago. The only person that actually really blew up, like really, really blew up, was Cardi B. And then K Michelle's, I would say, is a close
She was all right.
second.
She came
After,
yeah.
I mean, but that was like after being on the show, and then, you know, kind of boosted up their fame. Now, there are some people on there that, you know, was at their prime at some point, and now they're on the show, which I understand. But people like Jocelyn,
yep,
she's still chasing that bag. Shout out to her, girl. Like, shout out. But I'm still waiting for her to be on the airwaves.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for her to what she always says, she's gonna be the princess, the
Puerto Rican princess.
Puerto Rican princess, yeah.
Yeah.
Waiting on that to drop.
Hey, shout out to her though. Like, keep grinding, keep doing your thing. Like, sometimes it takes people longer than others. So
she'll get that one day.
I hope so. I do hope so. But I'm still kind of upset at the fact that, like we said before, like, we only got this one-dimensional type of Black person or Black box that we're all put in right now. Because like I said, all I see is this reality, quote unquote, reality TV. Because, you know, it's only so much reality goes with it. Because if you watch College Hill, that was reality, okay? Versus now it's like, okay, this is scripted. These people really don't live in these houses, or they're renting out this car or whatever. Like, whatever floats your boat, that's cool. But I would love to go back to that 90s era where it's just like, okay, we Black. We got this going on. We got that going on, everything else. But it showed you difference in people, or differences in people. I just wish that actually came back. And I'm not sure why it kind of changed, you know, and why it went a total, like, let's say 180 instead of like a 360. let's say, like it went 180 and was like, okay, let's just go and push this narrative, which I still have a problem with. But I have been hearing in the media, like Twitter and Facebook, wherever else, right, that there is a percentage of Black people or, a group of Black folks who are upset at the fact that when they turn on the TV and they do see representation, sometimes it's not Americans who are taking those roles. And they're upset that Black British people are actually taking those roles. How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel that it's okay for them to take American roles? Or is it more so like, hey, we're all trying to eat at the end of the day?
I literally just had a conversation with it's actually my uncle about this. I don't see it. Honestly, I don't see a difference because it's like it's Black is Black. I'm just happy to see a Black person on camera, whether they came from the Jamaicans or the Caribbeans, whether they came from the UK, whether they came from Nigeria. I'm just happy to see a representation of a Black person. Honestly, there's no difference between African American, a Cuban, a Haitian, a Dominican. Is no difference. No, a Brazilian. Only difference that separates us is where your boat landed. So if we want to nitpick stuff like that, that's just making us, it's further separating us as opposed to bringing us as a union. I'm just happy to see another Black person on TV and making that impact and opening those doors for other Black people to get out there. Like I recently found out I'm recently watching Snowfall, and I recently found out the guy from Snowfall who's playing that character is from the UK. And I couldn't tell that he was from the UK. He plays a great job. He does a good job of playing Franklin on the show. But I'm just happy to see the representation of Black people on TV. I don't care that they came from the UK or they came from wherever they came from. Because I know it was a big uproar about the lady who played in, I don't know her name, but she played Harriet. She played Harriet Tubman. And she played in the movie. She played in the movie Harriet, and she played Harriet Tubman, and she
was a Brit too, right?
Yes, and because and that's something I was having a conversation with him about that because he was upset because she was from the UK and he felt like it's a bunch of African American women who could play it, and I'm like, what difference do it make? She's a Black woman,
right?
She's a Black woman playing a Black woman on TV, whether she's from the UK or whatnot. It's just your location. That's the only thing that separates us from it. We're still the same kind of people. It's just
it's the bus stop. It's just the boat stop at the end of the day, and it just speaks highly to the fact that representation in the media. Yes, we need more of it, but you can see now how few seats there are for people like us. And I say that to say because you have so many roles geared towards the majority. So many roles geared toward a fair skinned person with straighter hair or, wavy, whatever it is, blue eyes, green eyes, whatever it is, right? But I don't like to see so many Black people fighting over the same 3 roles that we can have. So I would rather it be more opportunities for these people too. So it's no fight. It shouldn't be a fight to begin with, but people butting heads because they feel like, oh, well, it's not enough of us doing it and all this. It's too much of the separation like you talked about before, right? It just speaks to the very few roles that we do have available to us to actually get out there and actually work for those roles. So I don't know, girl. I feel like it's very simple-minded for people to actually sit there and think like, oh, well, you can't do this because you're from the UK or wherever.
It's just, I think that's, I just call it stupidity. I think, like I said, it just helps create the further division between African Americans and I'm gonna call them my brothers and sisters because that's exactly what they are. The only thing that separates us is where they landed, that we all the same type of people. And the sooner we work together, the sooner we stop creating a division, especially the light skin versus dark skin. I always thought that was the dumbest thing, to separate us by skin color, because at the end of the day, we're all Black. That, the sooner we stop with this division, the sooner that the community can heal, and we can actually start doing stuff as a community and making changes in our community. But if we continue with the whole, oh, well, you can't do this because you're from the UK, or you're not a real representation because you're not from the United States, that's just, I don't know. I just think that it's silliness. It makes no sense.
Now, what I'm about to do is make a sharp left turn real quick. And I want to go ahead and ask you this question it's based off of the topic, of course, but it's going in a different direction outside of the media. So based on the media that you see on day-to-day basis, have you ever once, even in college, right, been in a situation where you were treated differently based on a person's view or portrayal of you based off of the media or the news or whatever it is? Because I know I've had a situation like that before. Like it could be a professor, it could be a peer, whatever.
Well, you know, I was a political science study in school. So one thing that I did experience, like when it came down to certain topics, is like you were supposed to be the token one to answer the question for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it was a question about the Black community, it's like, oh, well, how do you feel about that? And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm not the representation of the Black community. I can't speak on, you know, how everybody would feel. I can say my piece and all. But I don't know if I felt like because of media representation, I know I definitely felt racism in college. I was actually just talking about how talking to somebody about how I remember getting a lower grade in the project and I was the only minority in that group. And I remember putting in the same amount of work, but everybody else got an A and I somehow got a C and the professor couldn't tell me why. She just said, oh, I think it was how you were supposed to be in the video, something like that. She gave some lame excuse and, you know, I didn't challenge it. And I remember, you know, I do have an example when I was doing a job interview. I actually was trying to apply. I was applying for a security position at ISU at the time. And at the time, I was more than qualified for the position. I had this training. I had did past security work at the malls and things. I had the certificate. Well, not certificate. I had the license for it, the state license. So I was registered and everything. And you know, it was just like as soon as I sat down in that interview and I was interviewing with that guy, I knew there was no way that I was ever going to get that position.
How did you feel that way at all? Because you said you was qualified and everything else. Do you think it was like, what are you trying to say based off of that interview?
Based off that interview, when I sat down in that interview, I knew I wasn't going to get the position because I was a Black woman. And I knew it just based on the body language from the guy when I was interviewing him, well, not interviewing him, when he was interviewing me, the way he acted in that interview and just the outcome. And like when I was answering the questions, there was no like interest or follow up with it. I knew when I sat down in that interview, I wasn't going to get that job. And there was certain jobs that just in that community that black people were pretty much out from, that you were not allowed to get. That unless you were a couple of the token ones, you weren't allowed to get those positions at those jobs. That they had this selected job for us, and those are the jobs that we were allowed to get. So we weren't allowed to work at the cafeteria. We weren't allowed to work in the front desk, and we weren't allowed to do the overnight positions, the ones that the other communities did not want to do.
Now, I have a question about that too, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be somebody listening and be like, okay, like, how would you know that they weren't going to hire you and what the bam, right? And we just want to make everything as clear as possible. So there's a teaching moment in this versus just saying or playing this blame game like, okay, I ain't do it because I'm Black. We're never just coming out here saying that's the reason why I can't get this job or I can't get this or I can't do this because I'm Black. There's always something behind it. So you mentioned a couple jobs on campus that you said that you knew for a fact you wouldn't be able to get. Could you expand on that, or are you able to at all?
Yeah. Okay. So like I use the rec center, for example, and I did an interview for that one. Now that one, well, it was always a stipend on campus because only people who can get there were the sorority people who, and it was mainly the sorority and frat people who belong to the white sorority and frat people. And I remember just doing the interview. I felt like the interview was biased, and the reason why I say it was biased because some of the questions that they asked me in there. Okay. So, and I don't remember exactly what the question was, but I remember that one of the questions, it was asking me, what did a certain word mean to me? And the word was a word that I had never heard of before, that I had it never been in my vocabulary, never been in my, never been taught to me in school or anything like that. Never heard that word before. And they based my interview on the way I responded to this particular word and the way, how I acted to the meaning of this word, and I didn't know the meaning of that word. Now, even though at the time when I interviewed for that position, I was a part of the kinesiology positions. I was studying to be a physical education teacher, and those jobs are supposed to be presented for the kinesiology department. Now, when going into that interview, it was just a lot of the questions that I felt were biased questions to ask people during the interview. Now, this was like I wasn't the only person on campus that said there was always like I said, a stigma on campus about this, and it was just like when you go around and you would see the staff that was hired there was never any Black people that worked there. There was never and if it was a Black person, it was only like one, and that Black person was probably a part of one of those organizations. It was like I said, the token one, the one that, you know, when they say I have a Black friend, this is my Black friend, that was the one who was working at the rec center. It was never any. You may have one. I think it was gonna be one or two people like that who actually did get there, but they kind of knew somebody getting those positions. But like it was just representation. Like when you go to certain positions, like when you go to certain stores or you go to certain areas on campus, you never saw somebody like you working there. And if they were working there, like I said, they were kind of token, or they knew somebody to get them in those positions. It was almost extremely hard to get into certain positions. Now, I did notice like towards the end of once I was leaving towards my last few years of campus, that it was a slight change, but I didn't see much change in the positions on campus. Like when we were certain positions, when you were trying to apply, Black people just were not selected in those positions. Now, when you went to like the ones like the dining center, working at the front desk, and you working at the overnight positions, we were all there. They always hired us to those positions, and you would see us all working at those positions. But when it came down to other places and working there, that you didn't see us there. And you can't tell me that people didn't apply for those jobs. I know they did, but you never saw us there.
So you saw them more so in the kitchen, or not really doing much.
In the positions that nobody wanted to do, basically.
Okay.
That's the ones that they used to hire us on campus. But when it came down to certain other positions, it was extremely hard to get in those positions, especially if it was a person of color.
Especially those positions that I'm assuming that would help you towards your major as well. Okay. All right. So, well, I did want to ask that, because what it sounds like is, especially based off of your interview that you were talking about and the words that were being used and things of that nature, that has happened over and over again, not only in interviews, but for voting rights, right? Where you use certain words, you know, if you don't know this word or you don't know how to do this, you have those tests back in the day where they were testing Black people to see if they could actually vote. Couldn't even pass it, right? Test. The literacy test. That's what I'm thinking about. To do with the actual right.
At hand, it was completely left field.
Or even like those SATs and ACTs. Those are also tests to get you into college, where if you are in I would say low class, middle class, I would say working class, low class, working class, or whatever area where you'll mostly see the Black and brown people or whatever, right? You would not get the same type of education you would in a private school and a predominantly majority high school, or just school system in general, where they are getting those opportunities and things of that nature. So once they do get to those tests, the ACT, SAT, even if you are excelling at your school in these working class areas or Black and brown areas, you may not have all the material that you need to pass that test because the books are old, you know, or you're not getting taught at the level that you need to be, versus you're not being challenged either. When you go over to these other schools, they probably did that in sophomore year in high school. Easy stuff, right? So that's what it sounds like to me. And it's still going on.
I can say I definitely experienced that firsthand. Just an experience in my just going through schools. I remember as a kid, from like the first to like the fourth grade, I went to I was in school in Chicago, so I went to Chicago Public School, and the majority of the school that I was around was Black people. I was, you know, only white people I was around were teachers. There was no other minorities. Well, no other race of students besides Black students. But when
you were on the South Side too, right?
Yes, I was. But when I transferred and I left, when I left that school, I actually went to a school in Indiana. And when I went to that school, it was I was one of the minorities. I can count on one hand how many other Black kids was in that school. And I would just remember at the other school I was in, I was actually excelling. I was doing pretty well. But when I went to this school, I was struggling. I was behind. I wasn't able to catch up. I wasn't able to comprehend a lot of the stuff. And it was like almost like night and day. I went to this one school, and I was having a horrible time. I mean, I was doing just fine. Then I went to the school and I'm having a horrible time. And then after I left that school and I went to another school, I started doing fine again. And it was like I went from I went from a white school and I went to another black minority school, and I was doing better again. And I just remember going to that school. The kids were a lot more advanced. And I was thinking at the other school that I was going to, I was going to I was going to a private school. I said public school before. I was going to Chicago private school. I was going to private school there, and thinking that you're at a private school, thinking you're getting a better education, but I wasn't. I was actually not. I was behind when it came down to the level I was supposed to be. And when I went to this other school, I found out that a lot of stuff that I was supposed to be learning, I was like a grade behind in. So it seemed like I was performing well at this other school, but when I went to this other school, I was behind. And then same thing when I left and I went to this, I went to school. I started going to school in Matson, and I went there, and I was doing good in those schools. But then when I got to college, I struggled again. And going back and looking at that, those schools did not prepare me to go into college. They didn't teach me the skills that I needed to get there to go into college. And the schools that I went to were on academic probation. So they were just mainly just trying to make sure the schools got to the point where they can pass the test so they can get some funding for them for the school in the first place. So I don't feel like they really, pushed the college readiness at that school anyway, that, they felt like most kids weren't going to go to college, so that they were focused on making sure those ACTs were good so they can have that. I mean, not ACTs, the testing was good so they can get the money to the school. But as far as getting us ready and making sure we were college ready, I don't feel like that preparation was there. That unless you were pushing and trying to find that stuff for yourself, that they didn't provide that with you. Or they didn't give you that readiness to prepare yourself to go into college.
It sounds like the area had the issues. Like you were in the south side of Chicago, and that area you were excelling in, versus going to Indiana, where we know is predominantly white. By the way, I hate Indiana. Let's be real.
I do too. Oh my God.
I can talk about that for days.
Man, I can talk. That was the first place I ever experienced racism. Man, I can go into all type of horror stories being at that place.
Man, yeah, because Indiana is it's a trip. It really wants to be Southern so bad. I tell you. But they got the KKK and everything up there too. So they just want to be in the South. They do. I don't know why they up here with us, but it is what it is.
Tell you a story about that school. At that school, I remember it was a 5th grade teacher. She was a math teacher, and she said to us that our school was really good until all these kids from Chicago came here and they messed up our school. Once these kids from Chicago came here, our school was all messed up because of y'all.
Wow.
Who are the kids from Chicago?
Wow. You can just point at yourself with that one, huh?
So it was like, yeah, I came to your school and I messed up your school. That's exactly what you told me. You didn't even give me a chance when before I walked in the door. I'm just here and I already messed up your school.
I feel a lot of shade being thrown, like the whole tree, the whole palm tree, just in your direction, like upside your head.
Yeah, that, like I said, that was the very first place I ever experienced racism. I ever felt the difference between being black and white. And I guess in America or in the world, just being the treatment of being at that school, that it was mainly a difference between us.
And you said 5th grade.
No, actually, I was in the 4th grade when I first.
You was in 4th grade.
4th grade when I first went there, but that was a 5th grade teacher who said that. We had like a meeting where they brought all the kids and they would talk about the new school year and stuff like that. And she got on the mic and that's what she said. She said we used to have a really nice school till the Chicago kids came here. And
she said this at an assembly or something like that?
Yep, in front of everybody.
Wow, that's embarrassing because you're like, what, 9, 10 years old? How are you going to judge a person based off of your, especially that young of an age?
Yeah, so, that was the first place I experienced racism. But yeah, Indiana, nope.
Yeah, they just... Indiana. We ain't going to talk about Indiana because we're going to be here for days with Indiana.
But yeah, moving on from that. That was a side note.
I mean, shoot. I just like the fact that, we were founded in Indiana. That's about it. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But honestly, I have one more thing to talk about. And we were talking about films. And we briefly went over that. I know we talked about sitcoms and TV shows and things of that nature. But just to bring it full circle, have you seen either the movies that just came out, like Soul, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Princess and the Frog, and even Bolden. I'm gonna bring up Bolden too. These are all movies that came out recently or the last couple of years that were Black leads.
I actually have not seen Bolden.
Have you heard about Bolden?
No, I have not. I have not.
We'll get back into that. Actually, let's get into it right now. Why not? So Bolden was actually just like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Mm-hmm. And Bolden came out when I was in North Carolina. So that was 2 years ago, maybe? So Bolden was a Black lead. It was based off of this jazz trumpeter back in the day. And if you saw Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, they actually mentioned him in the movie as well, because he came up around that time period too. So he was the person who I believe, don't quote me on this though, who had invented the style of jazz that we know today because of his skills on the trumpet and things of that nature, right? But just like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Bolden was a story. We don't have too much information on Bolden. Not a lot of people know about him unless it was stories passed down from generation to generation in the family or things like that. So just like those two movies, right, in comparison, it was speaking about a Black musician in that time frame. So it's not too much information, but they're just going based off of what they think they know, or the little information that they have. So I actually did my research on Ma Rainey prior to the movie, because I like to know like what I'm looking at, especially. And even before I knew about the movie, I knew a little bit about her, right? She was named the Mother of Blues. Listened to a couple of her songs as well, understood why, right? But again, just like Bolden, we don't have a lot of information on her, because at that time, it's not like they're writing autobiographies or biographies about Black musicians or just Black people in general, unless you are the one with the hair, what's her name? Madam C.J. Walker. Unless you're like a Madam C.J. Walker, where you made millions and you have this empire and you have things to look back on to actually show you like, okay, this is who I am. At that point in time, they're just now cutting records and recording. So it's not too many people who are, especially people of color, Black people. I'm not going to just say people of color or Black people. They're not calling for them to say, hey, let's go ahead and make this record. It's more so, okay, we know about you. You're a legend, but we don't have that much information, if that makes sense. So have you, I'm not sure if you answered or not, but have you seen Ma Rainey at least?
I did see Ma Rainey. I thought it was a really good film. I didn't know much about I didn't know much about Ma Rainey. I have heard of her before, but I didn't do much research about her, but I have heard of her before. And I have heard that she was like I guess the mother of the blues, what they called her. And she was she pioneered a lot of music, and a lot of her music was taken and used, kind of like a lot of, pretty much how almost all Black artists was back then. Right. They used to take their music and remake their music, and they would make money off of their songs that they would make.
Just like the end of the scene, the end of the movie, that last scene.
Yeah. I have seen that movie, but the movie that you mentioned before, Boulder, I do want to check that one out. I haven't seen that, but
they was not showing that everywhere. Like it came out in theaters and everything, but they was not showing it at every movie theater at all. Like I had to search it and find a theater that was actually playing it just to go see it. So yeah.
But I mean, I am happy that films like that are coming out, because we do get to see other stories. Because I said, we always see the tragedy stories, the civil rights movements and things like that, but we get to see other stories like my Rainey's Black Bottom. I thought that was a good story, because like I said, I didn't know much about her, but after watching the movie, I did read up on her and read about stuff that she did. But like you said, there's not much information about these people, because they didn't, like you said, if you weren't the token when they didn't really write about them, and they didn't do autobiographies about them or do many interviews about them. But I did read up a little bit about her story. I want
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, it's actually getting pretty late now. Like, I know we've been talking for a good minute, and we can go. We can go on and on, especially when it comes to Black issues and things of that nature. So I do want to thank you for coming to the Grown Folks Table and talking with me and sharing your stories and your experiences to everyone, and just going over what it means to us about the representation that's being portrayed in the media as well. So I thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your share.
Thank you for having me, T. I appreciate you inviting me on. And like I said, guys, check me out on Instagram and also follow me on Clubhouse. You can find me on Clubhouse at KD92. Follow me and I follow back. But thank you for having me on.
Go ahead and drop your handle for Instagram too, for both your business and your personal.
My personal, I actually don't use my personal that much, but you can check me out anyway. It's Goose Leader Simone, but my business page, I'm more active on my business page and I'm always uploading stuff. So check me out and follow me on my business page. That is KD Custom. It's just the KD is spelled with a K-A-Y-D-E and custom is spelled with a K. So check me out on IG.
All right. Thanks for listening in to the Barely Adulting podcast, and tune in next week for another episode. Be sure to download, like, and subscribe each time a new episode is dropped. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Barely Adulting Pod and share with friends and family. This is your host, T. Marie, signing off. Until next week, thanks for tuning in.